firstly, a really heartfelt congratulations to the family on your dad's award. I think it's incredible that he was shortlisted for this award, but then to go on and be the recipient, really, I think is truly remarkable. And it's a real honour, I think, for him and for the family. It's so well deserved.
He was absolutely thrilled. I think he was chuffed. And in true dad form, within 13 minutes of receiving the email, and I've got the email chain so I could check back on it. And the email reads, highly confidential, more than a bit embarrassing, ... love dad, XO. Close. I could just hear the immense meaning and the significance of the award in his voice. He was quite choked up, and he didn't often get choked up at all. It became very clear that this meant so much to him because of the sentiment in which it was given, and that it was conferred by peers with whom he'd shared so much and that he held in just such high regard. I think he was so hopeful that he was going to be able to come and join you. I think he truly believed that he would be there with you, not because he wanted to stand up on a stage and get it, but because he really wanted to share it with you all and to thank you all for the memories. And he was absolutely thrilled, and he was embarrassed a little bit. And he dearly wanted to be with you.
That he was deeply, deeply touched by it. And the fact that it was a mark of recognition from his colleagues, and the colleagues that he cared the most for and valued the most, I think that was what made it mean so much to him.
You know, he saw it as a recognition and a celebration for all the staff that had supported him over literally decades. And I thought that just spoke volumes of the sort of person your dad was.
He was always so supportive of building capability, of building relationships, of building skill and knowledge, but also sharing the outcomes and sharing the results and sharing the successes.
I think Dad first attended ISHLT in New Orleans in 1987 when he was at Stanford. Certainly, Mum recounts that Dad was so thrilled to have the opportunity to hear pioneers in the field of heart and lung transplantation present their work. And I suspect that thrill has really only built over the following 35 years or so, with increasing friendships and networks that stemmed from that initial meeting, I guess. And I think when we looked back, we think that he attended almost every ISHLT meeting from 1992 until his last in Denver in 2023. So given all the things that have happened in those years, I think that's quite probably shows you his commitment and how much he believed in it. He'd come home from meetings imbued with this immense enthusiasm, like a Labrador puppy almost. He was excited about the potential for the future of transplantation. He was so enthusiastic for continuing connections, and so proud of colleagues and ready to engage in this full narrative of events. And invariably we'd always try and sit down for family dinners when he'd come back, and it would just go on and on and on about all the details of the dinners and the wines and the talks that he'd heard. And I'm using his laptop at the moment because I accidentally drowned ours, and the fact that there's a PowerPoint file on the desktop which is entitled Lifetime ISHLT, and it was last saved on the 18th of December, so just before he died. It shows how much ISHLT meant to him. Like he tried to tie up everything he possibly could. The very fact that he could not finish this presentation, I think that it would have meant writing the final chapter and closing the book on something that he most definitely didn't want to do. And, that probably tells you all you need to know about how much it meant to him.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautifully said. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Elsa's said it very well. I mean, I guess if anything, to Elsa's point, to extend Elsa's point in terms of the professional impact, I think in terms of his approach to transplantation, it was about that transfer of knowledge, bringing home as much knowledge that he'd given, and then being able to kind of translate that into his work at St. Vincent's, and be able to kind of draw on all of those new knowledge bases and see what everyone else is doing overseas. And I think, as Elsa said, that gave him a lot of brought excitement, but also kind of set new horizons for him.
You know, I think he saw ISHLT as a second family. You know, they've shared these amazing photographs from over the years at ISHLT events, and the smile on his face is just, it just radiates him, and he's so himself.
It was really clear it was his second family. When you would talk to him, he was just so fond of everyone in the society. I agree.
Hopefully he's not wherever he is looking at me being grumpy that I've opened his PowerPoint file, which says lifetime. But there is a slide number 7 is, the title is Families, and there are 3 dot points: ISHLT communities, global networks, and home. So there you go.
You came in number 3. There you go.
Yeah, you came in always third, but always there. That's what's important.
You made the slide, so well done.
Yeah, well done. I think the other one, perhaps some of this will mean a lot to those in the know, but there is a slide that's entitled Nascent Lung Transplantation Memories. And then there's a comment that this is important. So I feel like I need to read it out. There are 8 dot points. Rifampicin always wins. Cal and frozen cyclo. Induction with 18 milligrams per kilogram IVI cyclo. 4 legs good, 2 legs better. Don't know what that means, but HLT number 1 at SUMC. Airway hypersensitivity, bilateral pneumothoraces, and the Wendy procedure. So I feel like I'm reading a series of code words there, but hopefully it means something.
It does sound like one of your dad's typical PowerPoints.
Yeah, good.
Which needed a lot of explanation. But look, having seen him present many times, he was the master at presentations. So
It certainly was.
I'm sure there was a hidden meaning in many of those points.
Well, the second slide is in Latin in its entirety, so I will save you my murdering of the language.
So another memory I have is when I was his registrar, Alan arrived at work very early in the morning. He was always at work when I started my shift, and then he was always the last person to leave. He literally turned the lights off.
There was something that I wanted to note in terms of Dad's most treasured ISHLT memory. And I think really it was, as Elsa said, the friendships and, you know, those dinners with colleagues whose friendships he cherished the most.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to note was that prior to his death, Dad showed Mum Elsa and I all of the emails that he'd received from his ISHLT friends in response to, you know, his initial diagnosis, but then also the emails he sent out about his rapidly deteriorating health.
Yeah.
And he was so touched by all of the well wishes, the reflections on his career, the memories shared, the brilliant work carried out. And they all meant so much to Dad. I mean, to the point that they deeply meant so much to him. And I don't think we can stress enough how deeply he cared for ISHLT as an institution. Mostly really because it was an institution made up of friends and respected colleagues. As for his motivations, I think there were numerous strands to Dad's sort of unwavering motivation. There was his deeply curious mind that, you know, drove him to solve problems. There was his love of teaching and passing on of knowledge. There was also the loss of his mother at a formative age to cancer. But I think most of all, what kept him going was seeing the impact of his work on patients, giving them the opportunity to breathe freely and to live a full life. I think that's what drove Dad more than anything else.
Yeah, and look, I am fortunate enough, Chris, that I worked with your dad for 2 years directly, and I literally saw what you just said every day that I went and did ward rounds with him, and just his dedication was truly, for me, it was inspirational so early in my career.
I think that love and respect for his patients was just immense, and I don't think he ever lost that. I think he truly felt so privileged to be their doctor to the end. I think he was quite amazed by it.
Yeah, his knowledge of the patients was something that I still remember and reflect on how much he knew about the patient. He didn't need to look at the medical file. He just knew everything about them. And we're talking hundreds and hundreds of patients, and not just the patient, but their family. He recalled details about, what their family did, and he would ask about them months later. I mean, so it was really quite extraordinary, very powerful. Patients really respected your dad. They respected his knowledge, his compassionate care, and I think they really felt listened to. When we'd go on ward rounds with your dad, it was very obvious how much they really admired him, but they really appreciated feeling listened to, and that was really, really obvious to me.
The sort of the main one that springs to mind was that Dad was a founding member of Share Life and Outcomes Australia, which he helped set up with a number of people around 2002, I believe, which was focused on improving Australia's organ donation policy, process, and methodology. So through that, along with others, Dad built a bridge between the political, the business, and the medical worlds, and used his skills to help, the population writ large, but really those outside his sphere of transplantation, noting that, any impact on organ donation was obviously going to directly improve his ability to deliver for his patients, but also for all those requiring organ donation. So Share Life and Outcomes Australia was able to secure approval from cabinet funding that would update Australia's approach to organ donation in order to match proven leading practice globally. And really this, I think, marked a significant contribution to what is now a proven legacy of enabling organ donation to those in need, but also honouring the wishes of those organ donors themselves.
And I think it's just a remarkable skill to be so active in the transplant sector, and then to take time out and work at the donation sector as well. I think very few people have done that, but I'm not surprised to hear that your dad was so active.
I think it's one that maybe didn't come so naturally to him, but he saw the value of it, and so he adapted accordingly.
The one that really, I think, underpinned his success was his MD thesis in the mid-90s, because really it was in an emerging clinical field of medicine in human heart and lung transplantation. And at that time, certainly in Australia, the funding for those programs was not secure, and yet your dad really did his part in progressing the field of transplantation locally and really establishing those programs. And he really did that off the back of the incredible research that he did, and that was 30 years ago. But if I asked Allan what he would think his career highlights would be, knowing him, he'd probably pick something that I hadn't either thought of or perhaps had low down on the list. So I'm actually going to ask both of you, what do you think your dad would say was his number one career highlight?
I think much as with what motivated him, what Dad found most rewarding was when he would speak to us was his patients, really. Seeing his patients living their own lives, being able to enjoy the things that Dad enjoyed, having their own families, climbing mountains, skiing, running marathons, all of those, having careers, all of those things were like, I think Dad took great joy in each of his patients' successes, post-transplantation. It was something that really sort of meant a huge amount to him. Each Christmas we would have a collection of cards and
That's what I was
gifts.
thinking of.
Yeah, next
Yeah.
to the Christmas tree from all the various patients. And I think we didn't probably appreciate at the time why this was so important to Dad, the cards especially. But it was much like the emails from his, colleagues. It was representative of the work that he'd done and that he was so proud of and cared about the most. I just wish that, maybe I'd sort of had a bit more insight at the time as to why that meant so much to him.
Why we had to sit and listen to them all, you mean, Chris?
Yeah, exactly. rather than, giving him stick for why he was going through them. But, that they did really mean a lot to him. And then I think outside of his patients, he obviously, as you touched on his PhD, but there was his time at the Brompton and at Stanford that he really, was highly formative, obviously, and shaped his career trajectory. But, he obviously enjoyed that thoroughly.
Yeah.
But as for an achievement that he would point to, I would say that his time as ISHLT president really was his most savoured achievement. Again, because it was it was representative of the recognition and support of his peers, people he respected, and whose opinion he savoured, and that meant, like we've said, so much to Dad.
Anything to add there, Elsa? That was really well said.
I think there's one thing that we haven't necessarily commented on that much yet, but it was his just insane ability to write and to publish and to write.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like I was reading, I feel like I'm a terrible child because he flicked me everything. Like, look, here's another one. And I just, life is busy and sometimes I don't have enough space to read whatever amazingly titled paper he's most recently published. But more recently, I've been going back through and reading, which I wish I had done whilst he was here, reading more than the abstract, and just the clarity with which he wrote and the care and attention to detail and the passion that comes through, like that will keep inspiring people. Those, like the review papers he's written and the big summary chapters he's written, they're just, I know he was so proud of those. And I think that's kind of the little, he didn't really maybe sell it as much as some other stuff, but I know that deep down he cared about that because it was communicating what he was passionate about and the perspective that,
And I mean, he would spend hours up at his computer on weekends,
hours.
or come home from work at late at night and then go straight on to writing some paper or something. And again,
because it was all in his head. It was just
it was all in the head. Yeah,
it was just there. It just needed to tumble out through his fingers in his one finger typing. Like,
and I remember speaking to him a few weeks before he passed, and he had just published another paper.
Yes. Yeah.
On COVID-19, and
it
was just incredible. I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
most of us struggle to get one out in a year, and he's just like prolific.
Yeah.
I mean, there were so many other things. We talked about Share Life and Outcomes Australia, but there were all of these other sort of advisory boards that he sat on. And would wake up at all hours of whether they were international or national, all hours of day or night, just to tune into these and contribute. It was his energy was quite extraordinary, even as you say, as he was getting sicker and sicker, but that passion never faded.
No. I can tell you, one of the most terrifying things is presenting a PowerPoint presentation with your dad in the audience.
Oh no, I can believe you entirely, Peter. I gave up
Yeah,
doing that in
I've done that a
oh,
couple of
no.
times, and I see him walking up to the microphone, and I just start to panic because I know he's going to ask me a question that I am not going to answer very well.
Thank you very much for that, Alan. I'll take that on notice, and we can chat
Yeah,
about that in the break. That'd be
that's
wonderful.
right. I'll talk to you about that later on tonight. Thanks so much.
Oh, look, my
Well,
time's
that
up.
was yeah, that was pretty much all of our childhoods doing any homework or anything like that, Peter. But
Yeah,
it
there's a
was just a
reason I
look of
don't play chess.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. A look of scorn on Dad's face as we
yeah,
try to sort of get through
yeah,
some body of homework. Just
yeah.
incredulity.
But all that comes from really, that he just was so passionate and exacting, and he was bothered, wasn't he? Like he was bothered. He didn't cut corners.
Mm,
And he wanted you to be bothered as well. He wanted you to care, whether it was doing, work up here or like farm work or stuff around the house or whatever. Like,
yeah.
yeah, without being nasty about it, he wanted you to
No, not
care,
at all. Yeah.
you know?
He
I
had a
think.
very active mind, your dad.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, he did.
The other thing I was going to ask both of you was, we've sort of touched on it, but what do you think your dad's greatest legacy will be?
I think that's a lovely question, Peter. I think I wish it wasn't a question that needed to be asked because I wish he was still here. But I think that his patients and their families,
Yeah.
and I think the medical and allied health professionals that he felt fortunate enough to have taught and mentored, I think they're his legacy. I think his approach to medicine, obviously I wasn't his student, but I watched and I listened to a lot of conversations, and I think he emphasized the importance of the person as a whole, their history, their family, what they want from life. He didn't presume that what he wanted from life was the same as what someone else would want from life.
Yeah.
Um, that sat together and alongside a deep curiosity for disease and improving the way we approach disease from, not just a medicine perspective, but a whole life perspective. I
Mm,
think hopefully, and you can maybe speak more to this, but hopefully that will endure in those he taught, and hopefully that they teach that in turn, and in that way it will keep on going, because it's pretty easy to drop that off, and we've all sat in a doctor's office and felt like we've poured our hearts out and not been listened to. We've all felt that. And to
yeah.
have someone who really listens and really sees you as a whole, it's pretty rare. And I think Dad did
Mm,
that. And he did this for us as well. I think he held our worries and he held our anxieties around a problem. And I feel that there's no reason he wouldn't have done that for his patients as well.
yeah.
So I think if he's shown another generation of medical professionals that that's something that's really valuable, then hopefully that's a legacy that will continue. Um, and I think finally, I think the ramifications of his encouragement of people, like he truly, if he believed in you, he truly believed in you, whether you're a
Yeah.
patient, a colleague, or a friend, and
Mm,
it kind of made you feel like you could do anything,
yeah.
I think. And that's pretty powerful in a good way.
Incredibly. And yeah, I felt his support throughout my entire career. And, he supported you in ways that were not obvious to you.
Yeah,
But he would work
absolutely.
behind the scenes and promote your career and promote your good name. And, then you'd find out about it, many months later. So
Yeah,
I think his support for people was really genuine, and it
yeah.
was very impactful on people's careers.
It's a lovely thing to hear.
Chris, do you have anything to add?
Look, I think I would echo Elsa's sentiments exactly, and I think that, you know, I wish that Dad was here so that we could be saying these things to his face, really. You know, so often, even knowing that, you know, the way things were going, it's often hard to tell someone all of the things that, you know, you feel about them, that you think about them, all of the positive contributions that they make. I think from a professional perspective, Dad's greatest legacy, as we've touched on, and as Elsa said, will certainly be his patience. I think the lives that they lead, and their memory of the compassion and care that Dad gave them, that will live on, and I think that means a huge amount to us as a family thinking about that, but also hopefully to those people. And then, as Elsa said, I think this is matched by his contribution to academia through his written work, and, you know, through his training of the next generation of physicians.
Yeah. I'm going to finish now, Chris, and ask you, do you have a favourite childhood memory of Allan?
Look, yeah, I mean, there are so many wonderful memories of Dad. Him, you know, reading "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" to us every Christmas under the Christmas tree, traveling to Europe with him dragging us around every winery in France that he could find. Skiing
At 8.
at age 8. You know, skiing in Italy and the US, going cross country skiing with him at Charlotte's Pass when I was little. Long hikes in the snowy mountains or in the bush where he was, you know, regaling us with stories of his time in Scouts. You know, they're very fond memories.
Yeah.
Watching the cricket together, playing cricket together, also, you know, wonderful because of his passion for the game and, you know, how much that drew us together. But I think really what my favorite memories are, I mean, and maybe it's just me being at Bilgola at the moment, but it just Sunday afternoons like today, Sunday afternoons, pottering around Bilgola, washing the car, mowing the lawn, cleaning the garage, fixing a light bulb, you know, it's all those really basic, simple things. They're the ones that sort of stick the most in my memory, and I think I'll miss the most.
Yeah. Elsa?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's the quiet things, you know. I can't pick a single memory. There's too many. There's too many, but I think it kind of links in, I guess, to that your question about the legacy. I think as long as I can, for as long as I can remember, Dad has been the one who's just in a really quiet, really unassuming way, he has believed in me. And that's a memory that sticks with me through all the different trials and tribulations in life, the ups and the downs. He was just there as that quiet, backer of you. And, he did, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He was as good as he was professionally because he was so committed. He was away a lot. He worked very late, very long hours.
Yeah.
But, it was a vocation, and I think we understood that in a way. And he would reliably come in and sit by our sides at night, and he'd put his hand, like, even though you were half asleep, you'd know he was there. He'd put his cool hand on your forehead and he'd tell you he loved you. And, there was no question in that and no judgment. And I reckon that's my favorite memory, that he was there and he loved us.
Yeah.
And I miss it. I miss him.
Yeah.
So that's that.
It was beautifully said, Elsa and Chris. Thanks so much. So really appreciate your time today, and want to thank both of you for sharing your memories. And on behalf, and I think I can confidently say this, on behalf of everyone that your dad has mentored and trained around Australia, around the world, it's clear to me that his family has been the foundation for his success, and it certainly underpins, I think, successful careers. I think that's been really evident today, and I really want to thank you for that, because many of us have benefited from ultimately the strong sense of family and support that Allan has had around him for decades. So my gratitude extends to both of you, and congratulations again for this award.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Peter.
And thanks for the time that you've put into this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And mum
And Mum.
means a lot to her. Means a huge
Yeah.
amount to her.
I think she dearly wanted to be, part of this. She wanted to be away with Dad at this meeting beside him accepting this. And I think
Yeah.
it is just, his loss is just immeasurably massive for her.
Yeah.
And I
The
just,
last time I saw your mum was in the back of a limo in San Diego.
there you go.
That doesn't sound very much like mum at all.
It doesn't
but
sound very much like Mum. The last time I saw my mum, she was in a gator trying to start a pump.
Well, it was interesting because it was Alan's presidential year, and we arrived at the airport at the same time, and he saw me with my bags, and he said, "Come on, mate, look, I'll give you a ride to the hotel." And it was a stretch limousine. And your mum was there, so that was the last time I saw her.
It was probably the first time that's ever happened.
Well, I'm going to tell
I
you
remember
my
he was excited about having in San Diego because there was a brewery that he quite liked in San Diego. So,
Oh, really?
yeah. I think it was
My
exciting.
favourite memory of your dad actually was it's a long time ago, 25 years ago, but it was during the Olympics. So I'd literally just met your dad, and the Olympics, I think, was in September, and we had lots of Make-A-Wish Foundation requests from patients to meet Olympians, and Olympians were, doing their PR thing, and they were coming up to St Vincent's Hospital, I mean, literally every week, and Alan was front and centre, meeting these Olympians
I don't think
and
he ever
showing them
told us.
around. I've got a
I
couple of
don't
photos.
remember that at all,
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, no, I
I've
don't
got a
remember him saying
photo
that.
of him, me, and Monique with the awesome foursome standing
No
Oh,
in
way.
I'll find it for you, and I'll
I
scan
would
it and
love
send it
that.
to you. It's a brilliant photo, but one of the great things about your dad was, he wanted everyone to experience it. So, the junior staff, he said, you've got to come along
Oh,
and meet
yeah.
all these people. And so, we were just part of this entourage. And even though we were incredibly junior, meeting all these athletes, and it was an amazing time. I mean, that
Yeah.
was my favorite memory of your dad.
Yeah.
But
That's brilliant.
that pretty much sums it up, Peter. I think he or sums up part of him. I think that I don't think hierarchy was a thing for him. I
No,
just don't, which I mean, he's probably passed on to me, and maybe that's part of my problems in life, who knows? But I think that the person who cleans the floors is just as important as the person who runs the place right at the in the office right at the tippy top. It
yeah,
falls down if you don't have clean floors. And if
yeah,
everyone doesn't communicate, it falls down. And
yeah.
I think Dad was all about that. Yeah.
Oh, he personified that. I mean, his
Yeah.
ward rounds they were long because he stopped and he chatted to
You had to talk to
everyone.
everyone.
Right. I mean, I'm not talking doctors. I'm talking everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he'd introduce you. He'd say, "This is my registrar, Peter," and
Yeah.
he was a real gentleman. And yeah,
And
He
as a
also
young doctor, did that make you feel, do you think that even though you were, in a difficult training on a training journey that can at times be difficult and challenging, do you think that made a difference? The fact that he introduced you and took the
ab- ab-
time to see you as a person as well?
absolutely. Because it wasn't just at work. He did that at conferences.
Yeah.
In my first few ISHLTs, I sort of felt like I was with a rock star. I mean, he just knew everyone, and I sort of very quickly got orientated and knew a lot of people around the world through your dad.
It's interesting, isn't it?
But I always
I
felt
had
he
this,
had my back, and he's always been a great support to me.
yeah, I had that strange experience where, I went, it was like one of my first, second year of uni, something like that. And I went to this party of some friends in Paddington or Darlinghurst or something like this. And one of them, I think, was someone had some older friends, and one of them was working at St. Vincent's. And they found out that, I was Alan's son or something. And it was like I was, some rock star's son. I was like, what are you talking about? He's just some doctor. I don't know. He goes into work every day. And oh my God. Like it was the most bizarre feeling.
How long ago was that, Chris?
That was probably, oh gosh, about 15, no, longer, 17 years ago, probably. Yeah. It was a very strange experience. But I think the other thing is, going back to the awesome foursome, Dad loved life, and he loved all these experiences. He loved all the things that the world brought him, whether it was, food, wine, skiing, adventures, meeting different people. Like he just really
Taylor
enjoyed
Swift.
it. Yeah, Taylor Swift. Whatever it
I
was.
just mean, whatever it was. Like he was like, oh
yeah, he was just so, into it, and he wanted to share that with everyone. He wanted everyone to be kind of as energetic and excited.
He wanted everyone to see the photographs and enjoy the light in the photographs and it
was just everything. He was just, if he was into it, he was into it entirely, and wanted everyone else to share in that joy, which I think was
I think that's one of the ways, actually. It's one of the, not the ways, but one of the kind of cues to me that he wasn't going to be around for much longer, actually, Peter, was that he stopped noticing the light outside, and he stopped noticing those little things. Like I'd send him a picture and he wouldn't comment on it.
Yeah.
And that was like literally a week before he died. And I think that was the biggest wake up call to me, that he wasn't going to be here for much longer, because that was such like, even when he was so sick after the dissection.
Dissection, yeah.
And after the duodenal rupture, and, he was so sick, and he would still notice the beauty in the light outside his hospital room. Or, he would comment on something, that the kids had done or something in a photograph. And then all of a sudden that stopped. And I thought, that's part of that's an integral part of who he is. That's waning.
Yeah.
So pretty huge. That was a pretty huge part of him, I think. That joie de vivre, maybe not in a, skip up and down kind of way, but in a appreciate the little things.
Yeah.
Love talking to the person at the bakery,
Absolutely.
kind of way.
Absolutely. I saw that many times. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad. It makes me so happy. I was quite concerned about doing this because obviously, you go about your daily life just trying to keep going when you're missing someone.
Yeah.
And doing this, it's made me think about things that I possibly haven't been thinking about.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful for it, Peter.
Yeah, no, you guys absolutely brilliant. And you've been so generous today and with your reflections. And I just thank you again for it. It's been fantastic.
Thanks,
Thank
Peter.
you. Thank you for the opportunity and for chasing us down.
Yes.
I will get that photo and I'll send it to you. I know it's in my treasure box somewhere.
Thank you. That would be amazing.
Good luck at the conference. I hope it goes well.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, we're going to obviously video the whole presentation and we'll send
amazing.
that. We'll send that to your mum and you can show the grandkids and Yeah.
Oh, they'll love
Really.
it. They'll love it
Mm.
so much.
Yeah.
My goodness. Rupert asked me today, he said, "Are you sure, Mummy, I can answer that question?" I was like, "You reckon no." What's Papa's greatest legacy? What's a legacy? Anyway, thank you.
All right,
And I
guys.
look forward to hearing it.